I got to tell you about my cousin Tetta. I just loved her because she had a fabulous sense of humor, and she was a school teacher. And she taught school for 42 years, and you would think everybody would be, yay, Tetta, you did great. But there was this one parent that walked up to her with their fist in her face, just like this, and said, lady, I got a good mind to knock your teeth down your throat. She said, you know, I'll save you the trouble. She took out her dentures.
Golly, what do y'all talk about before they announce, as she would say, Miss America? When y'all are holding hands, what do you talk about? Oh, you lie. You look to the girl to your right and say, I hope you win. And what you're thinking is, I hope you trip. So I looked at her and I said, I hope you win, thinking she's going to say it back. And she said, I'm gonna. And then the master of ceremony said, and the new Miss America is Miss Mississippi. She said, told you. So I know what y'all are thinking. How'd you do, Jane? How'd you do? I'll tell you how I did. I did not win Miss America, but I married her boyfriend. Oh my goodness, teachers, they've got some stories. I love my friend Deborah. We sit by one another at choir. I said, Deborah, tell me something funny. She said, oh, Jane, I was substitute teaching last week, little kindergarten class. I walked in, I said, boys and girls, I'm your substitute teacher. One of the little girls ran to the reading lab, mutual friend of ours, and said, guess what? Our real teacher is sick today, but we got a prostitute teacher. But I love the people. I absolutely adore the small town people, except I have a friend that lives out in Texas, and she kept saying, where are you? There is no pin drop for this place. I have Googled it. It's not on the map. Y'all don't exist. I said, when she brags all the time. I mean, I love her, you know. Texas people. They're real proud. That's good. Happy for you. So I knew I was in for it. So she said, listen, I'm flying into Augusta, Georgia. Pick me up because we're close to Augusta. So I picked her up, going down the road. You know what? She started it. She looks up, said, what's that little tiny thing that just ran across the road? I said, that's a rabbit. She said, what? Mighty small. In Texas, they come on up to here. I said, really? You have to do this? And then a little while later, she said, what's up on a hill, Jane? I said, that's a goat. She said, goat? Mighty small in Texas. We grow them up to here. So I took her to my pond Thomas had dug. And there's this great big turtle crossing the road. She said, what is that? I said, a tick.
I have got a treat for y'all today. I mean, a fabulous treat. When I first started doing these shows, the very first person was Tara Brown. Now, I will tell you, that was probably back in August. And since August, Tara's career has done the space shuttle on steroids launching. And I talked to her a couple of days ago, and I thought, I gotta have Tara back because she's going to fill us in. She can't really tell us everything, but I'm not going to give it away, Tara. I promised you I wouldn't. But she is remarkable, and she has made a career change, and it is so fabulous, and I'm so excited. And here she is.
Hi, girlfriend. Everybody. Hey, oh my gosh, was it August when we last spoke?
I want to say it might have been.
That sounds about right. It was so long ago. I don't even remember. You know what's funny? I never know what day it is, except Monday. I know Monday. Everything else, I'm like, what's today? So So it's just always so funny. So it could have been August. It could have been April. I don't know. But I'm just so happy to be back. Thanks for having me back.
You were in the process of moving.
Yes, I've moved from Charlotte, North Carolina to Nashville, Tennessee in August of last year. I'm not quite, Yeah,
that's when you were fixing to take off. You were getting everything arranged.
I wish I could tell you that everything is arranged. It's not. Some stuff is still in boxes. practice because, I think I told you then a good problem to have is I've been booked on a lot of shows and engagements and different things. So I haven't had the time to fully unpack. And I've given myself some grace with that because, you just feel the need to just get everything done. And I was like, I give myself grace. So it's a good
Yeah.
problem to have. The reason I can't get fully unpacked is because I've been super busy. And it's been great. Talking to you after just having driven back from a long car ride from where was I? Mooresville, North Carolina, back to Nashville. So here we are.
Well, I think it's great. So tell everybody what prompted you to make that career move. Because I mean, you've moved to the mothership of entertainment, definitely.
I tell you what, it was encouraged of me to move this way because, as you know, the humor that I do is clean,
Yeah.
and this is a very good town for clean comedy. You have a nice collection of people here who've made a great living doing clean comedy, excuse me, like Nate Bargatze, Dusty Slay, people like that. So, you know what? I have exhausted the things that there were to do comedically in Charlotte. So I said, okay, Lord, let's give it a go. And here we are. And it's been great. The people in Nashville are just so kind. And this community has embraced me well. And I'm so incredibly proud of myself because I have sought community. I think when you move to a new place, it can be really hard to get connected to people and you
Yeah.
can feel isolated. So you have to be extremely intentional, in finding community. And I've done that. So I have connected, you'll love this, with a great group of women who are all over the age of 50. And we get together for brunches, there are walks, there are all these kind of fun things. And I met one of the women twice, with the exception that these women, a lot of them who I met for the first time at outings. And the very cool thing is I had a comedy show. These women didn't know me from a can of paint, and about 9 of them came to my comedy show. So they have been great, and it's been fun. So yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so your comedy is great. It's clean.
Yes.
Everybody loves it. So
Yes.
tell me.
Thank you, everybody, for loving it.
Yeah, everybody loves you. And you're still involved in our NSA Carolinas, but you're also in the
Yes.
Tennessee Speakers Association. So, we got Jeannie stamped all over us. I still miss her every day. You do too.
She's
when
amazing.
you think back on her, when you create new material, do you hear her telling you things like, okay, that'll work? No, better not.
Well, you're so funny you should mention that because I thought about her the other day when she said, you can find the funny in everyday things. And that happened to me last week, I think, when I was at Chipotle. Like, I love Chipotle.
Yeah.
And I was in Chipotle and I just thought of a joke being in Chipotle because it's like I was getting a bowl. You go down the aisle and you tell them what you want in the bowl. And I was saying to the gentleman, can I have salsa verde? And he goes, is that the red or the green one? And I'm thinking to myself, well, I didn't realize this Chipotle was on Sesame Street, and this is the first week we're learning colors, but it's the green one, So I just cracked up to myself thinking, a trip to Chipotle can just inspire material. I was going to the supermarket the other day, and a little girl was yelling out about Girl Scout cookies, and I was like, I feel attacked right now. I think she's targeted me specifically. So I think about Jeannie a lot when those moments happen because a simple trip to Chipotle at a grocery store can just inspire so much material. I also think about her a lot in the way that she treated people. And I think I said this before, and if I didn't, I definitely want to get this across. Watching the way that she treated people when she performed at theaters, especially like the ushers and those sort of folks, she wanted to make sure she let them know how much she appreciated them.
Yeah.
So I find now when I do shows, I had a really good theater show in Wytheville, Virginia, a few weeks back. And I wanted to be super intentional about thanking every single person that had anything to do with the show. And that came from watching Jeannie do that. So, they say if you want to be a great one, you watch what the great ones do. So I miss her so much. And I do, I feel her in little touches of things that I do. It's hard not to feel targeted when I'm the only one coming out the supermarket. And I'm like, this little girl's probably thinking, yeah, she's never said no to a Girl Scout cookies. I got her. And she's not wrong, but I'm just saying. So
That's
it's funny. So yes, and to your point about comedy, it's been great. As you said, I got some great things on the horizon that I
yeah.
can't quite talk about just yet because some things are being confirmed. But I'll just kind of, and then I'll tease it to say, maybe my ship is coming in soon. So
Yay,
we'll
the
see, we'll see.
ship
But
is coming.
we're not gonna go there. Yeah. So people, yeah, don't say anything yet.
Those things.
Like, you
I'm
never say anything until the perfect
this
paperwork is signed.
Girl Scouts honor.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Girl
See,
Scouts
I don't even know how to
honor.
do it. How you do it? It's three
Like
fingers?
this
Okay, there we
three.
go. There we
This
go.
is the other one. And
Oh,
that's,
okay.
bless her heart. That's
But
like,
let me tell you what I thought about with the Girl Scouts. The Girl Scouts have all those cookies, right?
yeah.
The Boy Scouts need to step up their game because I think they only have popcorn. I think the Boy Scouts fundraiser is popcorn.
Oh,
Yeah, they
I
got
did
to
not
step
know
up.
that.
Because listen, when you get to be a certain age, you can't have as much popcorn as you used to have.
And you
So
certainly
they're
can't have the other either. Oh,
yeah. But at least with the cookies, you'll sneak them. You know what I mean? With the popcorn, you think
yeah,
about your teeth and all that stuff. So I'm just saying, Boy Scouts, you're limiting your audience by sticking with
that's
that popcorn.
right. I don't think Girl Scouts, I don't think they count.
I don't
It's
think they
like,
do too. They're not Catholics, no.
no, they don't
No,
count because
they
it's
don't.
like getting those little teeny Twix. Like you got this is so minor.
I feel like when there's something that's seasonal, you don't add the calories. Girl Scout cookies are
Absolutely.
seasonal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It does
but
not count.
you know what? It's so fun. I don't know why I'm on this kick of Girl Scout cookies, but I'll tell you what was interesting. I was in a hotel recently, and in the lobby, I saw there was a sign where you can scan the QR code, and it would take you straight to cookies to get Girl Scout cookies, and they had the cookies at the hotel, and I was like, "This is genius." Because who
It,
doesn't want a late night snack when you run out of Lorna Doones that they give you, at the front desk? And I thought that was so brilliant. I resisted the urge to get them, but I thought it was clever. So I don't know if one of the girls' parents worked for that particular hotel, but I just thought it was genius.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty smart.
Hmm.
I love that. Well, do you have a new bit you're working on? We're talking about the Chipotle and the Girl Scout cookies. That was pretty funny, and I can see that in development. But
Yeah, I'm working on. So that is funny because the Girl Scout cookie bit I literally worked on this past Monday. And I had the great fortune of performing it at Zany's Comedy Club here in Nashville for
funny.
the world famous and fantastic Zany's nightclub. So I got
Oh,
the opportunity to work on that this past Monday there, and it went over well. But as you know, when you're working on a speech or a joke or something, you're always tweaking it.
yeah.
So I did it Monday, and it went over really well. And then I had a show yesterday in Mooresville, and I added some little touches. Like, I'll give you a good case in point. On Monday, when I told the joke, I said, and you know how they get you with those Girl Scouts? They always send the cute little girl in the pigtails. Always
Yeah.
send the cute little girl in the pigtails to get you. What I forgot to say Monday that I remembered to say yesterday was, they always send the cute little girl in the pigtails, but don't be fooled, because all serial killers were cute at one time. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, so those little touches and tweaks and that sort of thing. So I'm still working on that. And even with the Chipotle stuff, I have a lot of material about moving here to Nashville that I'm developing and working on. But even so, let's say the Nashville material, I have to be careful where I tell it, because if I have a show in North Carolina, they might think the Nashville stuff is okay, but it will resonate more in Nashville. So
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
kind of making those adjustments where you have to make them.
So Tara, are you getting booked from word of mouth? Because I know people love you and people share your name.
Well, that's always a blessing, and it's nice. It's actually hitting the pavement and just seeing opportunities and making relationships, building on relationships. The show I had in Withville, Virginia, what was great for me is that the gentleman who is the executive director there, he used to work at the Blumenthal Theater in Charlotte, where I used to live. And so I had a really great relationship with him there. And when he moved to Withville, he said, "Hey, I'm moving here now. Would love to bring a show with you here." So we worked together to put together a fun Galentine's Giggle show, and it was
Oh, yeah,
fantastic.
that's so funny.
It
Oh,
was so much fun. We had so much fun. So things like that, the relationship, building relationships are so incredibly important. And I'm so grateful to him that he did that. I work with, a booking agent who looks out for me for opportunities. And again, looking for opportunities yourself. I'll give you a good case in point. The other day I was in a Facebook group, in a neighborhood Facebook group, and I saw at the local JCC here, Jewish Community Center, they were going to be having a sketch improv comedy show. So I called the center and I said, "Hi, just wanted to introduce myself. I do clean comedy. Did you ever want to bring stand up there?" And I left a message for someone, and she called me back. We had the greatest conversation yesterday, and she goes, "It's not in the budget for this year, but I looked up your information. You look great. Let's stay in touch." So stuff like that. So it's pounding the pavement. I put a video up on Facebook last week, I believe it was. I had no makeup on. I just had this lip stain on that I have on now. And the purpose of putting the video up is I wanted people to see the grind of it all, because a lot of times you get to see the finished result. Like, oh, you on stage and people loved you and they clapped and they stood and that sort of thing. But they don't see the part when you got to get up at 4:45 in the morning, to take an 8-hour drive across town so you can get somewhere before sundown so you can perform either that day or the next day. So it's a lot of hard work, and I never want to give the illusion that it's all coming so easy and I'm the best thing since sliced bread, but it's a lot of work. But I have been very blessed that people have liked me enough to want to bring me to places or recommend me for places. I'm going to speak next week to a bunch of high school children with a 3-month program. And that is the result of one of my speaker friends here in Tennessee recommending me for that. And, speaking of opportunity I had in May, same thing. Kay Francis, who we know, recommended me for a speaking engagement in May. So I'll be doing that. And I'm going to be doing some things with NSA, the North Texas chapter in June, Black NSA, I believe in July. So, just great out there pounding the pavement and making relationships. And it's been working out.
Gosh, that's incredible. I love that.
Yes.
That's the kind of stuff, and it makes you also want to give back. People give you and you mentor and nurture, and I love that. It's so funny because some things, just like the Chipotle and the Girl Scout thing, there's some instances or stories that just fall in your lap, and you just go, that's material, and that kind of. So I have to tell you my cute one.
Yes.
It was years ago, and I was speaking in Florida, and I agreed to speak to this little old church somewhere off of I-20. And I was so mad at myself. I thought, why did I do this? I was in the most wonderful venue ever. And so I drove, of course, flew back, drove to this little place, little cement block building. I walked in their tower. Everybody was 150 plus. I thought, what am I doing here? I just thought, and they were so sweet. Let me help you. And I thought, you will die if you lift that. If you lift that speaker, you're going to see Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah. Kept thinking because it looked like they're going to break.
Oh, my word.
And it's interrupted me. Ma'am, let me help you. And I thought, I gotta get an attitude check here. I was mad at myself eventually for not being as embracing as I could have been.
Yeah.
So, honey, here we are at the head table. And I hate that head table because everybody's staring at you talking, Got the little placemat, little heart and all that. The guy taps his glass, an old gentleman, stands up and says, first of all, I want all the hoes to stand up. And every single woman stood and they clapped. And I'm going, I don't know where I am. And I was tired too.
Oh, my word.
He said, now where's the head hoe? And this woman stood up and they all clapped for her. I'm thinking, this is beyond weird. And then all of a sudden the woman leans over and gets in my face and says, I was head hoe last year. Like it was some kind of and I'm going, where? And all of a sudden I looked next to me and I said, the hose? He said, oh, it was a she. She said, yeah, honey, we just abbreviated it. We're the pantyhose circle.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that
That is
funny? And that just
hilarious.
in my lap. And of course, I wrote about that in one of my books.
Oh, you got to write about that immediately.
Isn't
I
that
don't
just
know if you find that you do this. I add voice notes. Like if I think of something, I'm
oh
so
yeah.
afraid to forget it. Like I'll grab my phone immediately and start recording, like just make notes for myself.
Oh yeah, because you will forget it.
You will 100%
You will.
forget it.
Yeah.
Something I'm trying to work on now. I noticed this the other day. I was watching television and closed captioning just came on without me asking it to.
Oh,
I was like, does my TV know how old I am? Like, why do they just think I automatically need closed captioning? So I was like, I gotta write something up about that. So I was like, got my phone, closed captioning, automatic on the television. Right about it. So funny. I love that, the hose. And so how do you get to be head hose?
well, as if the person that was in charge of the banquet was the head hoe. I about died. I just kept looking around, going, where?
Oh
And
my
then it was just, and then here I am mad at myself for being. I think these people probably been planning this thing. They probably didn't have a whole big a budget, and I slashed mine just so I could go. And the whole time I'm thinking, I need an attitude check. These are nice elderly people, and all of a sudden they became the hoes.
See
And
that?
it
You
just
had the best. Look, and you got you a bit out of it. How about that?
man, and that's gold.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm working on something else, but I was in Salt Lake City, and I had just talked about artificial intelligence, and I had all these people on. Tara, that's an incredible tool.
Yes,
There's so many tools. It could be abused. I get all that. People get scared of it and all that. But I had it all on my mind. So I'm at the Farm Bureau convention talking to an old farmer, and I said, I'm surprised you don't have anything on AI in your program. He said, oh, we've done that so many times. We're sick of it. I went, seriously? Well, y'all are on the cutting edge of all of this. He said, oh, yeah, honey, we are on the edge of AI. We are on the edge of it. And I said, well, I think it's incredible. I said, I think it's taken over. He said, no, I wouldn't say that. And I said, well, do you do chat? He said, to a cow? He was talking about artificial insemination.
Oh my goodness, that's right. He's a farmer. That makes sense.
Yeah. And so
funny.
It was too funny. And I thought, now that's a funny bit. But wrote it down and all that. I don't know when or where I'll use it. But see, this is where people like you and Jeannie, now she'll say, oh, you know what you can do with that? Pause right here. Because people don't realize how hard it is to create a bit.
Yeah.
They just don't.
There was a great a friend of mine shared this yesterday on Facebook. There's a great article in the New York Times with Taylor Tomlinson, who's a comedian. She's about to have a late night show. And they were showing the anatomy of a joke and how she had worked on her closing joke, and how she kept tweaking and adjusting it. And it was so fascinating for someone who develops jokes I understood what she was doing. And she's like, okay, I can make it funnier if I do this. If I do that, I can do that. In one version, she used a curse word, but then she took it out because she knew that, there are going to be times she needs to use that joke where she can't use a curse word. And so it's actually really fascinating. And the art of forming a joke is just so incredible, and it's so satisfying when you can have an idea in your head and then you can go and write something up and then perform it and then have people laugh. I tell you something else that I'm really enjoying right now, and I don't even know how to properly put this into words, but I am enjoying connecting with people. I am enjoying when I am at shows, and now I have a thing I do at my shows where I do a Q&A afterwards. So I'll ask them to turn the house lights up, and I'll just say, listen, a lot of times people don't get the opportunity to kind of have one-on-ones with comedians. So if you have any questions, I'll answer them. It has been so fantastic, Jane, getting to know people in this way. And a woman emailed me a couple of days ago and said, hey, I really enjoyed that you did that. It gave us some additional insight. I am loving that so much. So I get the biggest kick after the show, talking to people, both from the stage and in person. And it's just been great. And again, I credit that with Jeannie, just watching how she interacted and engaged with her audience. And I think that's very important because, I always say this, when people walk into a venue, you never know what they're coming in with. Life is heavy. If we sat here now, this could be a different interview. If we sat here and said what you're going through, what I'm going through, but we all have something. So when people walk in that door and they've spent their hard-earned money to be with me for 90 minutes, I want them to walk out with such a great experience. I want them to feel appreciated and loved on. I'm a big hugger, and so I'm like, if you want to hug me, and I get the hugs. I get, like, even last night after the show, it was so great because after the show, people would just walk up to me and just arms open, and I'm like, let's do it, and so I love that. I love this feeling of connection and community because I just feel like we're all going through some stuff, and you don't know a kind word you say to someone, a joke you can tell someone, a hug you can give could just help someone in a way that you can't even imagine what it's doing for them.
And people are hungry for humor.
Yeah,
I don't
they
I told
are.
you this, but I was in New York about a month ago, and I went to see the Broadway musical Shut. And it's from the couple of Nashville guys. A woman and a guy wrote it. It was corny dad jokes, but it was funny. Oh my gosh. And so many people were there even 2 and 3 times because the humor was so fast and like double entendres. Like my daddy said that paper airplane over there, if it don't fly, it's just stationary.
Oh my gosh.
It was hilarious. But I was sat with a woman who loved the comedy so much. I even wrote about it in a blog that I got on Broadway. It was the surprise of the season. But I'm saying all that because you can see that people are hungry for some kind of mental vacation from whatever. And maybe you'll help them have a solution by the time they leave. They lighten up. They have the endorphins are running through their brain. And it does something and it clicks in a different direction. Who knows what? Humor is healing. The Bible, the good book, the Holy Scrolls said, "Merry heart doeth good like a medicine."
Yes.
But a crushed spirit will dry your bones.
I'm sorry.
But that's very true.
Yeah, it is. There's a commercial. I can't remember who's behind it, but I love this so much. And it speaks about, they have a lot of young people in it. And there's a girl, she's taking a picture and she looks, she just looks like, okay. And another girl looks at her and smiles, and then she smiles instantly. And it talks about like the power of a smile. And I love that so much because I remember years ago, I used to be a greeter at my church, and I was serving at the funeral of a young woman who died pretty tragically. In a lover's triangle kind of thing. And it was an extremely sad funeral. And I remember it was the first time I was at church and there was just silence. Like the only noise you heard were the sound of people's like heels hitting the ground walking into the sanctuary. And I remember everyone looking so sad. And there was a young woman walking in the sanctuary and I just locked eyes with her and I smiled. And she looked so sad, but then she smiled because I smiled. And so when I saw that commercial, I was reminded of that. It's like sometimes you can just smile at someone and it can just change the direction or the course of a day. I remember once doing a comedy show and a woman came up to me afterwards and she says, "Thank you. My dad died recently and this is the first time I've been out since he passed and I've not laughed in about a week." So the fact that I get to do that,
oh, I know it. Isn't that something?
That
happened to Tara. Somebody was on the front row. They didn't laugh really hard. They chuckled. And after it was over, they came up to me and just blew me away by saying that they had been holding their grandbaby and rocked the grandbaby to sleep and to death. And they had not, it about killed me. But then all of a sudden, it's just like you think, oh, this is why I love this business.
Yeah.
I got to share a little bit of comedy with these wonderful people.
Right.
And they needed it. They were desperate to have some kind of change of pace. But I'll tell you, I wrote a story one time in one of my books, and it was about this girl told me this. She said, I was just so down. And speaking of a smile, she said, I was in a restaurant and I looked up and I said, it was at a great distance. And she said, I love that woman's hair and she said, that is beautiful. And she said they waved at each other at the same time. And she said, oh, this is incredible. I've got to go meet her. And she got up and she said, she's coming to me. Well, it was a mirror. She did not know it was her.
Oh my goodness. That is so funny. She
was talking about the power of a smile.
That is so awesome.
It was hilarious. So she said
That's
she got
so
closer
that's
and closer.
actually really funny.
And then I realized we had the same outfit.
That's hilarious. You know what
Yeah.
I love to do too? I love giving, I don't know if you like this. I love giving random people compliments. Like you ever see
Oh,
somebody in a supermarket, I was like, your hair looks so pretty. And like I say that and it catches people so off guard
it
because I
does.
think a lot of times they're not expecting that. And you know what? I especially like to do it with pregnant women because I feel like pregnant women are feeling their most vulnerable. So, I'll say things like, hey, happy baby to you. You look great. And it's something about when you say something kind to someone, while it does
Yeah.
something for them, you'd be surprised at what it does for you.
Oh my goodness.
It just
You're
makes
so
me
right.
feel good to treat, I'm going through the Starbucks line. I'm like, hey, sweet girl, I'll take that. You know what I mean? And it does, like I said, I'm trying to do something for them, but I find that I get some things out of it too, because like I said, I don't want to give up the impression that everything's hunky-dory and everything's roses, because some days it's not, but sometimes you got to push yourself. You got to get up and like I said, some mornings you got to get up at 4:45 to hit the road and you're not feeling it, but on the other side of that is somebody who's needing to hear something that you have to say, and it's a beautiful thing. And I will say this, and I don't know if you find this, the other thing I love so much about being able to provide humor is watching the growth in me, like watching how I perform. When I
Yeah.
first started doing this, I would talk really fast because I was so nervous to be there and I was afraid that
Yeah.
everyone's gonna think I was a fraud and I got to get out of here before they figure it out. Now I can tell a joke and I can take my time and I can make
Yes.
people laugh and I can
Yeah.
be comfortable. And I know that if you're not laughing in 2.5 seconds, it's okay. I'm
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And I love the growth of this business. I love that you are constantly learning and growing and surrounding yourself with people who want you. Like I performed at a private event this past Sunday in Chattanooga, and I was performing with a gentleman. I was like, he was so good. He makes me want to be better. And that's what I love.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Always play tennis with somebody that's better than you. They can teach you how to hit that ball,
Yeah.
It's the same principle. But
Yeah.
it's funny you say that because when you do, I was at an event, Thomas is involved at the Aiken Symphony, which is a wonderful group of musicians. But we had a reception afterwards, and there is a girl I have been wanting to get to know her. And she's real attractive. She always wears the most beautiful dresses. And so I went up to her and she's, she's just it has a beautiful presence. And I said, I love your dress. And she said, honey, rent the runway. I said, what?
Oh.
They have sales. So she said $18. I mean, Tara, it was cut out in the back and it had like a little ruffle. And
Yeah.
I said, that is beautiful. And I said, look at you with your no pantyhose on. And
Yeah.
isn't it cool, And she said, oh no, let me tell you, I do wear pantyhose. My daughter, and so she kept going saying, I have a pair of pantyhose that never run. They're guaranteed. I said, what's the name of them? You see, all of a sudden, in a period of 90 seconds, I got that Rent the Runway has a
There
sale.
you go.
And I found out that there is a certain pair of pantyhose that will never run.
Well, you got to go back and tell the hose ladies.
I know.
They
Sometimes
probably know already.
yeah. When you get intimidated by somebody, it's sad. Or when you intimidate and you don't mean to, because I've had that happen as an author.
And the other thing too, I think we can get in our heads about the one person who didn't connect with us and somehow miss the 65 other people who love us to death. But
Oh,
it's just
yeah,
like
yeah.
that same thing. Like I can perform a joke and I can have the whole room laughing. But if I
Yeah.
see one person out the corner of my eye
Yeah.
not laughing, I'm like, why are they not laughing? And it's so funny because it gets in your head. I'm like, do you not see the rest of the room laughing? But it's just so funny how we sometimes do that. But what I found though is that everyone's dealing with their own insecurities. And I think sometimes we miss it and we think that it comes across as standoffish or arrogance or whatever. But a lot of folks are dealing with insecurities, which is interesting. I'm listening on my drive to the memoir of Sebastian Maniscalco, who's one of the most funniest comedians on the planet. And he spoke about how he often never approaches people first because he's intimidated. And I would have never got that about him. So it's just, it's fascinating. We as people, you
Well,
know?
the thing too is when you realize that I don't know, you've had this happen. You're sitting there and nobody, these people aren't laughing at all.
Yeah.
And they come up to you afterwards and said, I have never laughed. And you going, so hard in all my life. And you thought, no, I just heard I've never laughed. It's so funny because some
Yeah.
people just Caroline would say that to me when she was growing up. She'd say, she would look at me and Holmes would be laughing. And I'd say, that was funny. And she'll say, I'm an inside laugher.
And like, I
She'll
needed to be
say that,
audible.
I'm an inside laugher.
Yeah.
What?
I needed to be audible. Like, I need you laughing outside your body. You know, one of
I had
the,
that too.
yeah, one of the my favorite memories in the history of my life is I remember I was performing in Laughlin, Nevada at a casino, and they had the room so dark I couldn't see the audience at all. And I remember hearing my mom laugh. And like she has such a distinctive laugh that it somehow comforted me knowing, okay, if I didn't make anyone else in this room laugh, I made my mom laugh. Like I heard my mom's laughter, and then somehow it just made it all okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But it is really a mind game. You have got to just get over it. And I love when I hear or see a comedian or a speaker that is so, like you said, is so comfortable. They don't care.
Right.
They're so, they know that they're good at what they do. They don't have to prove themselves anymore.
Right.
And they just do what they love, and they gather material. They spin fantastic jokes or stories or whatever. And I say joke, but I do tell one joke when I speak, and I tell people it is a joke.
Like I'm telling you it's a joke.
It's a joke. And it's about when I was cleaning up my mama's house and how hard it was. And I went right before she died, she said, I'm going to make you laugh. Pause. Even when I'm dead. Now, Tara, that's scary right there.
Yeah.
It is scary. You're going, is she going to come back? Here? What? So sure enough, she planted things all in the house. Funny stuff that I can't show people because it's inappropriate. But there was one thing that she did leave in a drawer, and she had Elena's Sunday school joke written on the outside. I might have told this when I was at the thing in Elon with you. And it said the woman was getting on a bus, and I'll say it's my mother's favorite Sunday school joke, and she's never told a Sunday school joke before. The show was Code. And woman getting on a bus with a real tight skirt, and it goes on, and she couldn't get her leg up, and it was real tight, and she kept reaching back and unzipping it and unzipping it and unzipping it. And finally, this man and I'm shortening it, to put his hands on her waist and put her on the top step of the bus, and she wheeled around and said, how dare you be so fresh? He said, me fresh? You've unzipped my pants 3 times.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
But everybody, the biggest of all the things I talk about, is the biggest laugh. But you see, I set it up, and it's kind of because you can do this in speaking. It'd be hard to do it in comedy because you want to keep it all up. But I set it up, and people are going, oh, your mama's gone, that kind of thing. And then I say, and mama, and I have a little slide with it, even a picture of an envelope and my mama holding it. But all of that to say, jokes are jokes.
Yes.
And, you got to be careful about other people's property and all that, because people, that's a kiss of death when a comedian, I know you know that because it happens, doesn't it? Oh, it's awful.
No, I find that people, for me, I do a lot of humor about being a woman of a certain age, and that really resonates with audiences because, and then, I do workplace humor and that sort of thing. So I stick to the things that people can relate to. So, and my humor is observational. And I remember, it's funny because I have to remember, a lot of times I'll say at a show, I'll see someone in the front row and I'll say, what's your name? And they look panicked. And I'm thinking, why do they look panicked? And I get it, because they don't want to be picked on, and they don't know that I'm not that type of comedian. And I'll have to say to them, and I'll say something like, oh, no. All this comedy is self-deprecating. And I got to remember all the jokes about me. I don't have time to make up one about you, So I try to put them at ease, but I remember, like, a lot of times people don't want to be picked on. And that's the other thing I don't like to see, when people get picked on at comedy shows. So I'm like, you don't come here for that. You come here to have a good time and that sort of thing. So, this month has been really good. It's been very busy. And and you and I've spoken about this offline, you can have those seasons where it's just, go, 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 go. And then sometimes it's like you pick up the phone, it's like, hey, is this thing working? So it's just, you have to you just have to just keep grinding and keep getting it.
That's true. You have to really believe in what you're doing,
Yes.
and that you're spreading joy around. And comedy's change. I know a lot of people won't darken the door of a college campus
Yeah.
for fear that something, if they say something making fun.
Yeah.
That being said, you have to have humor. If you tell somebody how to laugh when things are not going well, you got to do the same dang thing.
Yeah.
And you got to listen to your own show. Like my children would say, Mommy, you need to listen to your speech. And
Well,
I'll say,
they say you have to read the room. You have to read the
definitely.
room. And I remember once I was on a show, and one of the comedians was doing a lot of political jokes, and I was like, this is not going to end well. Like I can see one guy in the audience, he was getting really upset, and I can see his face turning red. And I had my mom with me at the show, and I turned to my mom and said, this is about to be really bad.
Yeah.
And sure enough, as soon as I said it, they started going back and forth at each other, the comedian on stage, the guy in the audience, and it was just not a good scene. So, I'm not the comedian that talks about politics. Like it's just you're always going to divide the room. You're always going to split the room. So, there was a young woman once, and I was, I really took and take seriously my role as a mentor to people, younger comedians.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember there was a sweet young woman doing comedy, and her opening joke was something along the lines that, I know what you're thinking, she's too pretty to be doing this. And I pulled her to the side and I said, let me tell you something. I get where you're going with that. I said, but what you did when you said that is you just alienated all the women in the audience.
Yes, right.
I said, you just made all the women just have a negative reaction to you right out the gate. And you don't want to do that. I said, I understood what she was going with the spirit of the joke. I said, maybe do that joke after you've established, because an audience decides within the first few seconds whether or not they like you. That's the thing you learn. If they know off the bat, like, okay, we like her, we're going to stick with this. When you get up there and say, I know you think I'm too pretty to be doing this, girlfriend, half the women are going to be like, I don't think you're that pretty,
Yeah. And my date better not think it either.
Huh?
And my date better not think it either.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. So you put that joke somewhere in the middle, if at all, and so she received it well. But and again, I'm thankfully in my 10th year of doing this.
Yeah.
And those are things I had to learn, again, just slowing down. And that's what I love so much about humor and comedy and storytelling. You're in a constant state of learning. You're in a constant state of, how can I tweak this and make this better? What? I said it this way this time, but it would be funnier if I said it another way. I think I was telling you the story. I tell this joke about going to Walmart to buy a ladder. And,
I love that one.
right. And so when I first started doing a joke, I did it with one tagline on it. It got an okay laugh. I remember thinking, I'm going to try to flip it and see. I flipped it. It got such a big laugh. Guess what? That's what I go with now. But it's a constant state. And then also being teachable, being teachable. If you see something in me that you think I can do better, and I love you like cook food. So if you tell me to do something, Jane Jenkins Herlong tells me to do something, I do it. But if you see me doing something, and you know what, Tara, I think it would be better if you did it that way. I value that. I value people who I trust giving me correction and direction. Because let me tell you this, I'm from a time when I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, where you were raised by committee. So like if we were outside, Miss So-and-so could tell you not to do something, even if your mother wasn't there. Yeah. So I'm used to being raised by committee. So if someone says to me, you know what, that wasn't kind of cool that you did that. I think you could do this better. You were wrong with this. I value that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's funny you say that because I think so much of those childhood experiences of and some of the comedians that I've heard do the funniest bits about growing up,
Yes.
and some stuff that we all can identify with. And but
Hmm.
you're absolutely right. And as you go on, I mean, the other day I was speaking I was in Louisiana, and I always tell a story about Thomas when I first met him, and I called him, and I was the queen, and he was a judge of pageant. Go figure, a long time ago. I said, "What have you been doing?" And he was very flat, and he said, "Artificially inseminating my beef cattle." And my next line, depending on the audience, says, "Oh, I want." So what am I supposed to say next? Do you smoke a cigarette when you get through? I mean, I thought it was so. But here I am telling that story, Tara, to a strange woman, and then I went on to say, 6 months later, I'm at a banquet and I'm supposed to sing, and my business manager called, and she's real Southern. And she's, "Jane Thomas Herlong said you could sit by him at the banquet," like that.
Aw.
I said, "Oh, Mr. Artificially Inseminated." And Rita, did you tell him I'm in a relationship? She said, "He's in a relationship." And she said, "With a bunch of cows." I never,
Okay.
and I pulled out my phone. I said, "With a bunch of cows."
Okay.
You see? And now when I tell that story, it gets a bigger laugh.
Yeah.
And I ask people too. I love stories. Y'all tell me something. I don't know if you ever now you run the risk of a
Yeah.
1,000 jokes.
Yeah. I got
1,000 jokes.
you showed the fun thing. Normally, I don't know if you get this when people tell you, "Oh, let me tell you the story," and you can use that.
Yeah.
More often than not, it's not something you use. But this was a funny one that I had been incorporating into a bit. A coworker who I worked with at the time, she told me that her mother went to the supermarket, and you know how you have the rotisserie chickens, and they have them time stamped
Yeah.
and about when they came out. And so her mom saw a gentleman looking at the chickens, and he was just looking at the different ones. And the mother said, "Are you looking for a good time?" And the guy just looked up like, "Excuse me?" And I was like, "That's a good one." So that one, I told her, I said, "Tell your mom I'm gonna give her a writing credit because I like that one."
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, I was speaking in Myrtle Beach to a group, and I asked if anybody had anything funny. And, because Jeannie always said, ask flight attendants the funniest thing they've ever seen, and ask
Yeah.
questions.
Mhm.
It's rough when you have to go through the stuff. You go, "Oh, that's a joke, and it's so old," but you
Mhm.
do appreciate it. This woman came up to me because it was a breast cancer awareness event. And my sister had a double mastectomy, and she was reconstructed. And this woman was real country, Tara. And she's so fun. "Well, my friend had that, and she didn't know what was going on. And her husband, Lord help him. It's
Yeah.
like the wheels turning, but the hamster's dead."
Oh my goodness.
I
Oh
said,
my word.
"This is going to be gold." And
Yeah.
I'll abbreviate it, but she said, "Well, she asked me to go with her to the doctor because Mr. Earl don't listen good. And so the doctor done come out and say, 'Let me tell you what I'm going to do. We're done took off your wife's breast, and I'm going to get her abdomen, and I'm going to move it up and remake what I done had to take off.'" And he said, "You understand, oh, Mr. Earl's eyes got like that." And he said, "No, sir, don't." He said, "I'm explaining it different. I'm going to take your wife's stomach, and I'm going to move it up and remake what I had to take off. You got any questions?" Mr. Earl says, "Yes, sir, I do. If she goes to getting hungry, them things going to growl."
Oh.
Yes, sir. I said, "Come here, come to mama." I
Oh
mean,
my God.
and so I'm thinking now sometimes, and you know how this goes. When I'm speaking to a breast cancer group or whatever, I'll say, "I got this story, and I want to make sure it's okay with you."
Yeah.
And so you just sort of run it by and make sure, because the worst thing is to get in the woodshed with the meeting planner. Probably
Yeah.
not so much a comedy club. You're gonna stay clean. You're gonna be
Oh, you
you
know
good
what I
to go.
did? What I did once at a private event. I was at a charity fundraiser, and I was telling a joke. And midway through the joke, it hit me that the joke I was telling was anti-charity. And I was like, and I literally was in my and I'm thinking in my head, abort, abort, abort. And I was too far into the joke to just stop it. And I was like, this is not going to end well. And when I tell you that thing sunk like a stone, and rightfully so. And I tried to backpedal and try to clean up, but I was just like, yeah. That was my fault. That was my fault, y'all.
And then what you say is, well, that didn't work.
Yeah. And normally the joke works. I was just like where I
Yeah.
was. I'm like, if I did that joke any other way, because it was a whole idea of like, how when you go to the supermarket, they ask you to round up your change for charity.
Yeah.
It was on a play on that whole thing. But if you're at a place where they're raising money for charity, it was just like, and I'm thinking in my head, what in the world are you doing?
Oh, I know. And you can't, and there's no way.
I was just like, you got to commit to the bit. So I committed to the bit.
Now that's a good one.
Yeah.
I've heard stuff like that before. I mean, I've had people come up to me and tell me really funny stories.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can't use that. And I'm halfway through. What was I thinking? And you just really got to be careful with stuff like that.
I'm sorry to cut across. You know what I tend to do? I tend to now, what I find is I over prepare. So I am old school in the sense that I kind of write out all my sets freehand. I type them all out. And I do that for the purposes of understanding the word count so I can know minute-wise where I'm at. And what I've found is if I'm kind of being asked to do 30 minutes of time, I'll prepare closer to 40 because I know that I'm going to inevitably forget something. Or if I get into a situation where I'm like, don't tell this, tell that, I try to prepare in enough time to do it. Like, for instance, I'm doing a private event this weekend for it's a really sweet thing they're doing. Their mom had passed away the year before. So to honor her, they're having like a birthday party and it's going to be a celebratory. It's going to be really fun. But when I was going through my set, I had to just make sure that I was being very careful with just certain things I said. Like I tell this joke where I talk about, when you get to be a certain age, the questions you ask when you're trying to date someone are different. Like, does stroke run in your family? That kind of thing, right? And so, but I have to realize I don't know how this woman passed away. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I won't tell that joke because I don't, you know what I mean? So it's little stuff like that. And again, getting back to reading the room and reading your audience, you have to be so careful. You really
that is so true. You said it. And I don't think I have like you talked about the political guy.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I have been where a speaker was clueless. And you are going, oh, this is terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, this is so bad. But people, if you can, like I mentioned, if you can gather stuff like in the stuff that works in the back of your head, what I do is I'll say, I have this, they work right here. These things work. Okay. This isn't working. Let me grab one of those. And so I had a woman come at me one time and said that her grandmother was at an event and I used this. And she said she just stood up and clapped and she's very elderly. And she looked at the woman who was speaking or singing, which I make me now, and said, you don't know at my age how hard it is to anybody a standing ovulation, instead of ovation.
Okay. I was like, what just happened? Okay. Oh my goodness.
She stood clapping.
Ovulation. That's
funny. And I said, Lord, I got to use that somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
On a plane one time, you can pick up some crazy stuff. I said, well, I love to talk to people. And I'll say, oh, well, it's almost Christmas. She said, oh, yeah, I decided when I'm getting my grandbabies, they love to sing. So I'm getting them a teriyaki machine. I said,
teriyaki machine. Oh, my God.
I know that's going to go well. I'm going to marinate well with them. But then, you start thinking, how can I play off of that? So it's a real art. Tara, it's an art.
Let me tell you something. I am so grateful to the Lord that He has chosen me for this. And I was thinking about this the other day. We all are given certain gifts. Like you are a beautiful singer. Like I admire singers. And because singing to me is such a beautiful gift, and it makes, when a person sings, like you can have the ability to make people emotional. You take them back to a place in time. You can evoke such great memories, and the training that it takes to keep your voice and a certain thing. I think it's so brilliant. And so when I see beautiful singers, I was like, I wish I could sing. But I'm like, that's not my gift. And that's the beautiful thing. We all have gifts. And the fact that you can sing and add humor to it, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So we all have these things that we're given. And so it doesn't makes sense for you. I'm not meant to sing. You're not meant to do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what makes this whole world so great, is because we each have our individual gifts that if we nurture and support it and grow it, it can just do phenomenal things. So like I'm having so much fun, Jane, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like every
Yeah.
day is not a party. There are times when it's harder than others. And like I said, when I have to get up super early to be somewhere, anytime I have to get up early, it's the worst sleep I have the night before. Because I'm
Absolutely.
afraid I'm going to
Yeah.
be
Miss
late. And I'm so
Yeah.
afraid of that. So it's just horrible sleep.
Yeah.
And I have this thing I try to do, not when I have to get up at 4:30, 4:45, because I have to set an alarm. But I try not to set an alarm, because if I have to jolt my body out of sleep, I'm not really up. So I
Right.
try to get up early enough to say, okay, now let's just transition to leaving. But there's some times when I have to. But when I tell you what, when I get to be in a room with people and I am feeling the love, I'm getting the hugs. I said something that made someone feel good. You cannot beat that. You just,
I know you got a busy weekend, and I appreciate you taking the time.
I love you so much. Love you
Well,
so
I
much.
love you too, honey.